You're listening to The Jake Asman Show on the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Our next guest is a four-time World Series champion, a former MLB All-Star, an important piece on the Yankees dynasty in the late 90s into the early 2000s. He is now the host of the New York Post Pinstripe Pod. He is Jeff Nelson, and he joins us now on our progressive guest line. Jeff, can't thank you enough for a couple minutes here. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So it's great to talk with you. I mean, I've been listening to you and Chris Shuren on the Pinstripe Pod, and I don't know if I can agree with both you guys anymore with just how poor the Yankees have played. I grew up in New York. I'm a diehard fan. I wish you could be out there in the bullpen and getting these guys back on track. I mean, let's just start with, the start to the year, Jeff. 5-10. I mean, how surprised are you that they've gotten out of the gate this poor?
Very, because I was putting them up there right now. I thought they would get off to a start like the Dodgers are getting off to. I thought they were that good. I thought that, okay, maybe the Dodgers are a little bit better, but the Yankees are right there. The Yankees are the best team in the American League. I still think they're the best team in the American League. They just have not gotten off to a good start, obviously. And everything besides the bullpen has been pretty decent. Defensively, they looked very poor, very lackluster. Offensively, it's just, again, they can't hit with runners in scoring position. They can't get anything going. Over the weekend at Tampa, or when Tampa came into New York, they had 11 hits, 3 on Sunday. It's just very surprising to me because like I said, I put them up there with the Dodgers when you start the season.
And to your point on just the Yankees getting owned by the Rays, that to me is just troubling, Jeff. I mean, this is a team that beat them in the playoffs. They continue to win every regular season series. I mean, your guys' teams would never allow one team to beat you like that. Like, doesn't there have to be like a sense of pride in the clubhouse that, hey, we're not losing today. Like we're not losing to these guys again.
Well, yeah, it's really tough to know how they go about their business or how they feel when they go and take the field and what they feel every day as far as playing. I can only speak to our teams. I mean, we felt like we were never going to be beat. We walked out on the field and almost it was a surprise if we lost the game. It was just a mentality that I think was taught throughout the Yankee organization. Even in the minor leagues, it was all about winning, and that's all you thought about. And if you didn't win, it was very disappointing, and that carried throughout the big leagues. I don't know how these guys go and how these guys feel about taking the field. Do they feel overmatched? Do they feel like, hey, we have to win every single game? What kind of pressure do they put on themselves? Do they feel like, hey, we shouldn't lose at all, and if we do, it's a surprise? I wasn't giving Tampa very much credit this year after losing Morton, after losing Snell. Analytics have really played a big part in their losing in the playoffs. I mean, it was very disappointing to watch that World Series in Game 6 when they took out Snell. I thought, okay, the only team maybe the Yankees might have to worry about in the Eastern Division would be the Blue Jays. But right now, the Rays are walking all over them, and they have such confidence, whether it's in Tampa or in New York, that they're just coming in and saying, you know what, you're not beating us, and the Yankees aren't.
Four-time World Series champ Jeff Nelson joining us here on our progressive guest line talking about the Yankees' 5-10 start to the year. So tonight, Jeff, I mean, they give the ball to Jameson Taillon to try and get them back on track against the Braves in the Bronx. 2 years, basically, and he's coming off the Tommy John. Do you think that he's the type of guy that, might need a couple more starts before we really get an idea on what he is as a Yankee?
Yeah, I think so. I think when he first started, it was like over 700 days, before he actually pitched in the major leagues. And, he's building up his pitch count. They're really going to take it easy with him as far as the innings limit. They're going to monitor that. And also the pitch count throughout the game. He has a really good arm. The last couple times, everything has been elevated. And, that's going to take time just because he hasn't pitched in the major leagues very long. And the way they do spring training now, I mean, guys are leaving spring training with 70, 75 pitches. And it's not like it used to be when you're leaving spring training, the starters are with 100, 110. It's almost like they ease their way through the month of April. And then by May, then they start maybe throwing that 100, 110 pitches again. But with Taillon, he's a guy he's just a work in progress. He's all about, getting innings, building that arm strength. He is a very good pitcher. He's got a good arm. it's very tough to come back from 2 Tommy Johns, but he's doing it. And he's one of those guys in the rotation that, he's a key member. I mean, you want this guy to be healthy and stay healthy throughout, because besides Cole, there's been a lot of inconsistency in that starting rotation.
And that to me is my biggest issue, with this team. Like, I think eventually they're going to hit. I mean, eventually guys will produce, you would think, to the back of their baseball card at some point here. But I'm so concerned as a Yankee fan that, the Yankees' answer in their starting rotation is Garrett Cole, and then we'll see. Like a team like the Yankees, the payroll they have. I mean, how is it possible they don't have more sure things in their rotation?
Well, you're absolutely right. You look at 3 guys in Herman, you have Kluber, you have Taillon. Herman missed the whole year last year. Kluber threw 1 inning. Taillon didn't pitch in 700 and some days before his opening start. So you have 3 pitchers that you really don't know what you're going to get throughout the year. And Herman got sent back because he had 2 poor starts. Montgomery has a really good arm, but he's had a couple iffy starts in a row. And you win with pitching. I mean, you look at all the World Series teams, they win with pitching. I mean, yes, they're going to hit, and yes, the Dodgers can hit, but they have great starting pitching, and they have good bullpen. The Yankees have a great bullpen, maybe one of the best bullpens in baseball. And once they get Britton back here, hopefully next month, it'll improve even more. But their starting rotation is very iffy, and you're right. And even with Cole, if you look at Cole, he threw 6 innings, got into the 7th inning, had 98 pitches going into the 7th. He's a guy that you kind of hope that, hey, 98 pitches, I'm hoping that you're giving me 8. We need 8 out of you. I know we have a good bullpen, but our other starters are wearing them out. And we're kind of looking to you to try to eat some innings up and save that bullpen a little bit, because by the end of the year, maybe even in July, this bullpen is going to be worn out and tired. And that's going to become a concern. Instead of right now, later in the year, it's going to be a concern for the bullpen.
Jeff Nelson with us here, former MLB All-Star reliever, now, of course, the host of the New York Post Yankee podcast, the Pinstripe Pod with Chris Shern. I mean, Jeff, you look at this lineup, obviously no one is really hitting right now, but still, how is Aaron Hicks still batting third in this lineup? It's just, it's crazy to me and basically every Yankee fan that I talk to.
I agree. They really missed out on trying to add some left-handed power, and I know they're trying to mix in a lefty in between all those righties. They're a right-handed dominant team. And, right-handed dominant teams usually don't go very far in the playoffs because they're very easy to pitch to, or easier to be pitched to, because you have a lot of right-handed pitchers. You look at the past championships that the Yankees won, the last one, 2009, they had left-handed power. They had Matsui. They had Nick Swisher. Teixeira was there as a switch hitter. So that left-handed power was there. The Yankees haven't had that left-handed power in a long time. They were kind of hoping that Bruce might have had a little bit of that left-handed power, but right now he was a bench player, and then he just wound up retiring because he just really struggled at the plate, and really not in, it wasn't probably a good fit for him playing every single day once Voit got hurt. Now at the end, I think the Yankees will look at this and say, everybody was panicking and saying all these things that they were doing bad and poorly during the beginning of the year. I still think they're the best team. I still think they can turn it around, but they have a lot of holes, and those holes are being exposed, and will they be exposed later in the year? I mean, how are they going to add pieces? I mean, are they going to add left-handed hitting? Are they going to add more pitching? Is Taillon and Kluber and whoever else they add, are they going to stay healthy all year? I mean, there's a lot of question marks with the Yankees that kind of surprises you to start the season.
No doubt. And my frustration too, Jeff, is when, we hear, Brian Cashman will come out and say, we don't worry about being too right-handed because our guys can hit righties or lefties. Well, if that's the case, then why are you batting Aaron Hicks third? Then why are you so insistent on getting a switch hitter there to break up the righties in the lineup? Like they're saying one thing, but then their actions indicate that they do care what the perception is of the lineup.
Right, and everything's computer driven, which really kind of bugs me in a way, because there's really no feel in a lot of ways for the game anymore. It's all about, okay, we got to hit this guy second, this guy third. We got to pitch a different way. You're seeing all the pitchers look in their hat, or they're flipping out a index card out of their pocket saying, okay, this is the way I have to throw this guy. A lot of the feel is out of the game now, and it's all computer driven. But you're right. I don't understand it either. I mean, I think it was either Saturday or Sunday. It might have been Sunday when they had Gardner hitting. I think maybe Hicks was leading off. They had Gardner hitting third. If you're that right-handed dominant, you might as well just hit them all in a row. There's no sense of hitting a poor hitter that is, I mean, look at the strikeouts that some of these guys have had with Hicks and Stanton and Torres. I think they're, probably in the top 10, all three of them in strikeouts in the American League right now. You just can't, you got to mix it up. You got to try to find some way to be able to mix that lineup up until they start getting hot.
I mean, what can a manager do in this spot to get the guys going, Jeff? I mean, you played for, a Hall of Famer, of course, in Joe Torre, but when you look at Aaron Boone, is he, the right guy to get this team to turn things around? Like, what would you do if you were Aaron Boone right now?
Well, it's different. It's different now with the guys because you can't go in there and start throwing stuff through the locker room like the old school managers and, yell and scream and call people out like you used to. Guys are a little sensitive now, and I don't think you can do that. They take that to heart. And you want these guys to perform at a high level on the field. And a lot of these guys can't take that way of criticism or, just being able to be fired up. They have to be fired up in a different way. Boone, I guess in his way, he's a calming guy. I heard that he did get a little upset the other day that he went in the locker room after I think it was Friday when they were throwing the ball all around. They made 3 errors against the Rays. And they just looked like the bad news bears. Maybe he went in there and said a few things that probably was out of character for Aaron. But he's a good communicator. But as far as trying to fire guys up, it's different now. It's not like a Lou Piniella or Tony La Russa or Joe Torre or those guys with the way they did it. And Joe Torre was very calming in a way, and he would call you in his office and jump you if he felt that you weren't giving 100%. But it's different now. Guys are sensitive, and you almost have to watch how you go about trying to fire guys up and motivate them.
Jeff Nelson joining us here, 4-time World Series champ, of course, with the New York Yankees. He's the host of the New York Post Pinstripe Pod with Chris Shern. Jeff, I could spend all day with you, but I'd be remiss, of course, if I didn't ask you, about your time playing with the Yankees and actually reflect back on, some of the glory years with the team. Out of all 4 of your championships, I'm always curious when I get a chance to talk to someone that's won multiple championships. Does a particular title mean more than the other one to you? Like, which one out of the 4 means the most if you can only pick one to hold on till forever going forward?
Well, it has to be the one against the Mets. Our producer, Jake Brown, who put us together, he's a huge Met fan, and they do a Met podcast as well with Nelson Figueroa Jr., I think. And I'm always ribbing him. And now he's got the upper hand because the Mets are in first place. But that's very, very few times has that ever happened. But it's when we played the Mets in 2000. I don't think the rest of the baseball world cared. But when we had the inter-city rival, the Subway Series, and you're watching the news, all the memorabilia. I mean, it's just really exciting. It was an exciting time for New York, and I loved it because the Mets talk trash. The Mets always talk trash. They still talk trash. Jake Brown always talks trash all the time. And, you just have to put them in their place every once in a while.
It's interesting to me that you picked that one because, I've heard Paul O'Neill say this and a couple other guys on that team that there was just an enormous amount of pressure on the Yankees to win that World Series. Like, despite the other 3 you guys had already won, you guys lost that one to the Mets. The Met fan would be able to hold that over the Yankee fan forever.
Oh, absolutely. And, we backed our way into the playoffs. I think we only won like 86 or 87 games that year. And we lost the last 6 games in a row. I mean, we lost 3 against Baltimore, 3 against Tampa. We wound up backing into the playoffs because I think the Red Sox wound up losing. So we had like 5 or 6 games left, and we wound up winning winning the division because the Red Sox lost. We went, I think, 5 games against the A's, and then we beat them. And to get through Seattle in 2000, I think it went 6 games there. So, and the Mets were like, oh, these guys are old. Just like the A's did a similar thing. They were like, oh, it's our turn. We're a young team. The Yankees didn't have a great year. They backed into the playoffs. They're old. It's our time to win. And the Mets did the same thing. The Mets were like, oh, we're going to win in 5. But it was. I mean, you had Mr. Steinbrenner, you had the Yankee fans, and then obviously you had the Yankee media. And then we were trying to win 3 in a row. So there was a lot of pressure, but it was a lot of fun.
Jeff, I can't thank you enough for a couple of minutes this morning. You and Chris do a great job on the podcast, and we'll continue to listen, and hopefully the Yankees start turning things around starting tonight.
No, I hope so, too, and I appreciate it.
Jeff Nelson with us there on our progressive guest line. You can find him on Twitter at NYNelly43. We'll take a quick break, wrap up hour 2 of our show. This is the Jake Asman Show here on Sports.